Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is the Earth Day 2024 event by ASHRAE, New York, titled Challenge Accepted, Tackling the Climate Crisis. Matthew and I would like to thank everyone for coming. If you have any questions during the presentations, please email one of us, and we will attend to your questions and/or needs. A couple rules first. Please, no cell phones. If you need to make a call, please feel free to make or take calls. Please use the stairs and go up to the side entrances so that we don't disturb any of the speakers as they're coming in, as the people are coming in and are out, okay? There are stairs that go down to the common area where there are bathrooms, and then please come back through these stairs as well. Please place your phones on silent. Try to keep side talking to a minimum. Once again, if you need to have a conversation, please excuse yourself and use the upstairs stairs. Please keep questions to the end of each presentation. Write them down, email them to Matthew and I, and we will make sure they are answered within the program. Very importantly, for PDH credits, at the end of each PDH presentation, the beginning and the end, there will be a tag, and we will and you will register through the website for that speaker and for the comments and any questions you may have. There's 3 PDH sessions. The first one will be Carrie Brown's. The second one will be Paul Torsellini. And the third that has 2 PDHs will be the panel. So at the end of each presentation, please scan the barcode and fill out the form so you can get the PDHs. Thank you all for coming. Matthew and I really appreciate you taking time out of your Mondays. We'd especially like to thank the students. If there are any students in the, are there any students yet here? Thank you very much. We'd also like to thank Kelly, Luke, Uma, Isabella, Jinjin, and all those that helped create this event. And thank you all for the speakers, especially those that traveled here from out of town. We appreciate your time very much. We would also like to thank Fordham University for providing this incredible amphitheater and assisting with all the planning. Also, Urban Green, thank you for assisting us in promoting the event and sharing your expertise and how you promote, create, and provide such value content to the building community and general public. Your impact is tremendous. A special thanks to the Claire Freelander Foundation and Peter Klein for their generous donation to support this Earth Day 2024 event. What aligns CFF and ASHRAE so well is our shared commitment to the environment. As best summed up in CFF's grassroots statement, we prefer to align with nonprofits that are passionate about their work and the people they serve and do so effectively. Thank you, Peter, for seeing ASHRAE as a valued partner. We'd like to thank Ainsworth, a leader in the energy services and HVAC industry. And thank you to Thermal Systems Associates, Frank Rivera, thank you. And Hisense, a leader in the high-efficiency VRF, ERV, air-to-water systems, and mini split systems. So the main themes of our Earth Day event is decarbonization. We at first were going to make it for future technologies like hydrogen and certain types of almost R&D kinds of technologies, but with Local Law 97 just starting on January 1st, we thought we would make this event strictly about what's happening with decarbonization. What are the messages that we're hearing, and that we're going to really hear from Ginger shortly. What is the design guidance not just from ASHRAE, but New York State, and Carrie Brown is going to cover that. And then, is there a design guide for commercial buildings? Is there one already developed? And the answer is yes, and Paul Torsellini is going to give the presentation on that. Now, most important, of course, is what projects and what technologies are being used to help decarbonate our built environment. That's what the panel is going to be. We have 5 excellent panelists, and 4 of them are going to give really excellent presentations. They're going to show us different ways that the New York City is getting into compliance with Local Law 97 by decarbonating and electrifying their facilities. Now, the question I have is, do we really know about the kinds of emissions that we're talking about here in the codes and the guidelines and the local laws? And I was pretty surprised when I had a conversation last week with an esteemed colleague who's had 40 years experience in this field. And the individual didn't really understand the difference between Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3, and Scope 4 emissions. And I asked that question a lot, and I rarely get someone who understands those concepts. So Ginger's going to talk about ASHRAE's Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions. So let's just review really what we're talking about here. When we talk about Scope 1 emissions, the real shorthand word is burn, right? What are we burning? What are we producing on site? And not all buildings do this. A lot of buildings strictly do buy electricity, homes just buy electricity. So their Scope 1 emissions might not be great, but there's an important process of, is it effective to be burning on site, right? Or should the utilities be doing it effectively and providing the electricity? Scope 2 emissions are emissions that we buy. That's really the key. I call these the utility emissions. So these are the emissions that we're buying the gas, we're buying the electric, and those are categorized as Scope 2 emissions. And that's really what most of the, what Local Law 97 and what most of the jurisdictions are regulating, is Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, where Scope 3 emissions is really more about our behavior. They also account for the largest share of the emissions that are being produced, and they're everything from business travel to business cards to waste disposal. I use the example of coffee makers in a building, and there are coffee makers on every single floor. A lot of people have refrigerators, mini refrigerators in their offices. And these are emissions that we really aren't being regulated, but in the very near future, we really need to learn how to reduce them. And not just from an energy side, but from a behavioral side. And the question is anyone doing this? Well, everyone's doing this. Even Local Law 97 has a number of prescribed activities that can reduce your footprint and your carbon emissions. I found it very interesting that I researched, there was a very large fashion company that was sending out tips to their employees about how they could reduce Scope 3 emissions as they come to work, by bringing their own containers, by bringing their own coffee cups, and they are looking to reduce their on-site Scope 3 emissions, and I was very impressed with that. That's a list of the tips that they were giving, and these are tips that the employees could use as they come into the office or as they are at home, right? And that's just a lot of emissions. I mean, it's just a lot of emissions. Basically, everything we do creates emissions. And what we really need to start focusing on is what we call Scope 4 emissions. And I had never heard of Scope 4 emissions until I was at an ASHRAE seminar, and Benjamin Rodney, esteemed ASHRAE ex-president, spoke about Scope 4 emissions. And it was interesting because he only spoke about Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 4. And at the end of the presentation, I went up to him and told him, hey, I think you made a mistake. Your scope 4 emissions should have read scope 3. And he goes, no, scope 4 emissions, those emissions that we avoid. So it's not we use, it's how we use. Now, the best, easiest example of scope 4 emissions is ice makers in hotels. So I think it was in 1959, the owner of Holiday Inn was a little perturbed that when he went to other hotels, he had to buy ice. So he made ice free. And he made ice free by putting an ice machine on every single floor. Well, that never made sense to me to have 40 or 80 ice machines in your building. Instead, a lot of lobbies are moving towards one ice machine in the lobby, and as you come in the hotel, you pick up your bag of ice. It's much better ice because it's a true industrial ice maker. It's not those cheap chips that you get on the individual floors. And, well, you might think, well, I don't want to go down to the lobby at 11 o'clock at night, so you just call room service, and they send it up. And now they have one ice maker. That's scope 4 emission reductions. Somebody has to do it. Why shouldn't it be all of us collectively working on the same great mission? The questions I would like to be asked and answered, not necessarily today, but in the very near future, are how do we scale what is already being done and that's working successfully, right? And how do we change the behavior of people to reduce scope 3 emissions? And most importantly, as we go forward, what technologies do we choose for the path forward? We're going to have an excellent presentation on electric vehicle use, and there's a lot of people who are talking about hydrogen fuel cars. So when does that transition begin? And do we take both technologies forward, or do we choose a technology sooner or later?